on the boards, I'll give my head around. They can't solo when I carry the crown. Don't take a break, nothing to break me down.
Hi guys, how's it going? Hi everyone. Hope everybody's well. And here we go again. Hope you're all excited. And as I say, if you were there last week for the practice test for the AZ900, this is our second go at another exam. And we will be doing, I showed you last week the practice mode. So you should know about that. If you don't, have a little look. It's all good. So what we're doing today, we'll do this. We've done practice test 1. We're doing practice test 2, courtesy of Crack Search, who are absolutely amazing. And the exam questions, as I said before, are pretty much what you're going to expect when you actually do your exam. And also they're working in conjunction with Microsoft. So there's all the links to Microsoft, either in the practice mode or the exam mode. So yeah, okay, we got 45 minutes, 80%. No. 100% pass percentage over here. So yeah, let's get started. Why not? No time like the present. Okie doke. Okay, so which security component matches the compute defense in-depth layer? Okay, so compute. So you're looking at this word. It's definitely not surveillance camera. That's more physical. MFA. Yes, it could be construed as that, but I'm pretty 100% sure it's software updates and patches for compute. So going on to the second question, yeah, so identity and access. Identity and access, that's got to be authentication. And again, it's pretty much, it's the same options. So they're asking 3 questions with the same options. So yeah, the physical security, a camera is physical, so it's got to be that. Okay, so is it a true or false question? You can use Azure policy to apply tags to resources. Yeah, of course you can. You can apply tags to everything. You want to be able to know who can use your resources or who have access to your resources. So that's a yes. So true or false again, you can add multiple tags to the same as your resource. Yes, you can. It could be a department. It could be a different region, it could be, yeah, you can add multiple tags. Okay, again, true or false, an Azure resource inherits tags from the resource group to which the resource is deployed. Does it inherit a tag? No, it doesn't inherit a tag. That has to be done manually. So that's a no. So you have to specify the tag from the resource group. Um, so true or false again, you can assign an Azure policy to a virtual machine. Yes, you can. You have to be able to do that. Security. I could go into more detail, but it's mostly about security. So if an Azure policy is assigned to a resource group, non-compliant resources are removed from the resource group. Non-compliant resources. Oh, see, sometimes they're not. I'm going to say yes. If they're non-compliant, yeah, because non-compliant does not agree with the Azure policy assigned to the resource group. So yeah, they should be removed. So if an Azure policy is assigned to a resource group, only compliant resources can be deployed to the resource group. Again, yes, they have to be compliant with the policy. And by the way, guys, I'm, I hopefully I will get 100% in this. Sometimes I don't, but we'll try our best. We're getting at least 90% in this. So true or false? Azure Advisor can generate a list of Azure virtual machines that are protected by Azure Backup. Uh, that's no Azure Advisor. Yes, it has links with backup, but it doesn't. It can't generate a list of virtual machines. So definitely a no, I think, on that one. If you implement the security recommendations provided by Azure Advisor, your company's score will decrease. Well, that's definitely a no, because if you're implementing security recommendations provided by Azure, why would it decrease? It's only going to increase. So no. So to maintain Microsoft support, you must implement the security recommendations provided by Azure Advisor within a period of 30 days. That's a no. You don't have to. It's good practice to implement the security recommendations, but it doesn't have to be within a certain period. So that's a no. Okay, question 13. What should you use to track the costs of Azure resources? So the costs, that'll definitely come. It's under, it could be usage and quotas, but that's not tracking it. It's definitely not tags or templates, so it's got to be budgets. Okay, true or false? Azure Arc can manage physical servers that run Linux. So Azure Arc, if you haven't heard of it, it's basically running resources outside of Azure. It could be another cloud provider, but you can manage the resources using Azure. It's a difficult one, this, but yeah. So the Azure Arc basically combines Azure with different cloud providers, so you can still use Azure to manage them. So it's like something that you're familiar with. So yeah, that run with Linux. So yeah. So Azure Arc can manage Kubernetes service clusters at scale. Yes, it can. Yeah. Pretty much the same question. Yeah. So with the clusters, yes. Azure Arc can manage a third-party database solution hosted outside of Azure. Yeah, see, this question is tricky because of what I've just said about hosting or managing things outside of Azure. But that's resources. It's not database. It's not it's not databases. It's resources. So it's got to be a no. Okay, you have a web app, Azure web app. You need to manage the settings of the web app from an iPhone. What are two Azure management tools that you can use? Okay, so you're using Azure. We need two options here. Well, you've got to use the portal. Uh, yeah, so in the portal, if you know it, there is an option for the Cloud Shell, which works from an iPhone. PowerShell doesn't. Well, it can, but it's not specifically designed for an iPhone. But the Cloud Shell is. So it's got to be those two. Okay, you create a resource group RG1 in Resource Manager. You need to prevent the accidental deletion of the resources in Resource Group 1. So accident, if I could say the word, accidental. Okay, so that's got to be a lock. No, you don't want anybody deleting things unnecessarily, so that's got to be locks. Okay, so scenario, your company has 10 offices. You plan to generate several billing reports from the Azure portal. Each report will contain the Azure resource utilization of each office, which Azure subscription features should you use before you generate the reports. Okay, billing reports. Out of each office, it's not locks, it's not templates. I'm definitely going to say tags, because if you're tagging billing reports of each office, so you're looking at maybe different departments within an office, so they have to be tagged. So as I say, like could be finance, marketing, whatever. So yeah. So where does Azure Monitor store event data? Event data. Event data. So what's event data? So what you've been doing. Let's have a look at the options here, because this one's tricky. No, it's not storage account. It's not SQL. It's not a Q. It's got to be log analytics workspace. Yeah, that makes sense. Event data, yeah, it's logging what you've been doing. Yeah. Okay, so we need to pick one of these. You can assign an Azure policy definition to a. Okay, it's not container storage. It's not a lock. It's not a security group, because that comes as standard. It's got to be a resource group. So whenever you're doing a policy, resource group, that's one of the first things you set up. So it's got to be that. If something evaluates signals to allow or deny sign-ins to Microsoft Entra. Okay, so we're talking security here. Signals. It's not in tune. It could be managed identity, but I would say the main one, yeah, it's got to be conditional access. Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Okay, another true or false one. Building a data center infrastructure is an example of operational expenditure. No, we had this question last time. So, operational expenditure and capital expenditure. So, capital expenditure is more physical. Could be a building, could be uh, hardware, actual excuse me, physical servers. So yeah, data center is capex, not opex. So that's a note. So monthly salaries for technical personnel. For an example of operational expenditure. Yeah. So you're paying your employees operational expenditure. Makes sense, doesn't it? Leasing software is an example of OPEX. Yeah, same thing. Software, OPEX, operational costs. Okay, this is okay. We've got a big question here. An Azure administrator plans to run a PowerShell script that creates Azure resources. You need to recommend which computer configuration to use to run the script. Okay, we got 3 computers. Can you run this script? Okay. Let's have a look. So we've got Windows, we've got Chrome, we've got Linux, we've got Mac, and Windows again. Um, it's it's definitely Windows 10. I know that, and you need Chrome and the Cloud Shell. Oh, sorry, I didn't say that. Azure CLI tools installed. No, you don't need that. And then your Mac. Yeah, it's got to be those 3. Okay, so your company has several business units. Each business unit requires 20 different Azure resources for daily operation. All the business units require the same types of Azure resources. You need to recommend a solution to automate the creation of the Azure resources. What should you include in the recommendation? So each business unit requires 20 different Azure resources. So all of the business units require the same types of resources. Actually, I'm thinking, I think it's management groups. I'm a little bit stuck in this. It's between these two. It's not machine skill sets or management service. I would say management groups. Yeah, I think so. Okay, you plan to reduce ongoing Azure expenditures. You need to identify which factors affect the cost of a resource. Which 3 factors should you identify? Okay, outgoing expenditures. So what's the amount of, yeah, the amount of outbound data you're sending in a resource. What else? It's not inbound. It's not the type of data. Yeah, it's the region. Depends where you are, because that could be different costs. And and service tier. So it could be basic, standard, premium. So that'll affect your costs. Okay, I think that was correct. Okay, so you have a web app that runs in Azure. You need to identify the amount of time it takes for web pages to load in a user's browser. So what should you use? The amount of time it takes. No, it's not Watcher. It's not Monitor. Yeah, Application Insights. Because nothing else does that. It's got to be that one. So your company has an Azure subscription that contains several resources. You need to identify which department is responsible for the cost of each resource. Okay, which department? So each department has to be tagged. So I would say, yeah, to be able to identify which department, yeah, it's got to be tags. I think. Yeah, that makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah. So each department has their own, they're spending money on whatever. If you're looking at marketing, you're looking at finance, you're looking at HR. Yeah. So they're all tagged. Yeah. I think that makes sense. Okay. How are we doing for time? 19 minutes. That's okay. You have an Azure virtual network via one in a resource group RG1. You assign the Azure policy definition of not allowed resource type and specify that virtual networks are not allowed or not an allowed resource type in RG1. Okay, so VNet 1. It's not deleted automatically. That's manually. You have to do that manually. It's not moved to another resource group. Again, that's manual. Now a read only object. No. I'm going to say that. It'll still work until you. Yeah, it has to be that one. Unless you specify otherwise. Yeah, it'll just still work. Okay, you can use something in Azure to send email alerts when the cost of the current billing period for an Azure subscription exceeds a specified limit. Well, it's got to be budget controls. Or, sorry, budget alerts, sorry. Yeah, cost billing period. Yeah, so you could set your budget per month, uh, per week, per year, whatever. I've set mine to £1 per month in a year, so yeah. That's only because I'm very careful. Okay, true or false? From Azure Service Health, an administrator can view the health of all the services in an Azure environment. Yeah, of course you can. Yeah, you want to be able to see the health of all the services. Of course you do. From Azure Health, an administrator can create a rule to be alerted if an Azure service fails. Yes, hence the health. If something fails, you get a notification. Yeah, makes sense. Uh, from Azure Service Health, an administrator can prevent a service failure. Well, it's definitely a no. You can't prevent a failure from happening. You can be notified about it, but you can't prevent it. So it's got to be a no. Okay. Okay, here we go. Yep, we answered all of them. Fingers crossed. Two wrong. My bad. Or we get wrong. So if an Azure policy is assigned to a resource group, non-compliant resources are removed from the resource group. Oh, so no is correct because Azure policy does not automatically remove. Ah, yeah, that's my mistake. Right. It does not automatically remove non-compliant resources. Okay. Yeah, I should have known that one. That's my bad. I just get the other wrong answer. I'm quite annoyed about that. I thought I knew this. Oh, okay. So each business unit requires 20 different Azure resources for daily operation. All the business units require the same types of Azure resources. You need to recommend a solution to automate the creation. Oh, yeah. Require the same my fault again. I should have read the question. Require the same types of resource. So you need a template. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, so Azure Research, the templates allow you to define the infrastructure and configuration of resources. Yeah. So by using ARM templates, you can automate the creation of consistent and repeatable sets of Azure resources across multiple business units. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And yeah, but we passed, and well, no worries, everybody. Thank you for listening to me. Hopefully, it was a little bit useful, and I'll catch you in the next one next week. And all right, take care. Cheers now. Bye bye.